With new technology and faster ways of communicating being introduced every day, PR has taken on new forms and methods. The vast power of the internet has opened doors for PR professionals as they provide innovative and creative approaches to issues. In the past, the majority of tools available for use were either through print or broadcast platforms. However, these days, the merging of both analog and digital forms have increased the chances of success. PR in Nigeria has gone through various stages in its history, from political propaganda in the late 1930s to current professionalism era. As such, it is safe to say that PR is growing rapidly in the country. I'm not doing this alone. I introduced him earlier. He's live in the studio to give us knowledge about this. He is a senior consultant focused on strategy with Chains Reaction Africa, Mr. Adekunle Dixon Odukoya. Thank you so much. It's good to have you in the studio.
It's good to be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's start by putting things into context. I want us to start this way. A lot of issues and confusions around PR and what it is. As a key player in this sector, what really is public relations?
All right. I think you did quite a very good job with your own intro. And that puts in a lot of context into how we proceed on this particular discourse. So there's a lot of confusion, I agree, but that confusion only exists in the minds of those who are not true practitioners. For those who actually truly practice public relations, not PR as an acronym, the depth of the practice brings about clarity, it brings about depth, and it brings about a much robust, relevance in terms of what value we bring into the market space. So let's start with the definition, and I'll go with a very common one, and this is one of the things you come across on Wikipedia. It says that public relations is the practice of managing and disseminating information from an organization to its public, and that's so basic. It seems one-sided. It's a one-way affair. So okay. I think that is one of the areas where the misinformation or misunderstanding comes from. PR is deeper than that. We look at another definition by the Public Relations Society of America, which says that public relations is a strategic communication. And when we look at it, strategic communication process that helps in building relationship between an organization and its publics. Now they put publics in plural. So it could be those publics in the marketplace, it could be internal, it could be external, it could be your publics at home. So basically the way you relate to your family at home, to your children, your spouses, your extended family, you're actually practicing some form of public relations. However, where the first definition is flawed is in the fact that it only benefits you. But public relation is a two-way affair because this talks about to the mutual benefit of both parties or publics and the disseminator of that information. And it talks about relationship. It's not just about me putting information out there. It's one-way traffic, no feedback, no management of the process, and so on and so forth. However, for us at Chain Reactions and for those who actually practice it better, deeper, and the right way it should be, we go by the definition that is called the Mexican Statement. And what is the Mexican Statement says? It says public relations is an art of science that studies trends, analyzes those trends, advises organizational leaders on the consequences, and implements programs of actions towards achieving a mutually beneficial objective. So I'm passing across information, I'm getting feedback from you, we are both working towards a goal. And that is the standard that practice of public relations should be about. So what are those objectives? Those objectives is not always economic. Those objectives are not always social or political. So there are much deeper ways of looking at public relations. And like you mentioned, it has actually developed and evolved from the 30s when it was just propaganda to what we have today. And you see in the confusion you alluded to and the misunderstanding of what public relations stands for is where it seems easy for some people to come in and say, okay, because I have a friend in the media ecosystem, I do public relations. So I send you a press release and I think I'm doing PR. No, I'm not. I'm just a conveyor of information, right? So, but the practice of PR is all about managing relationship towards a goal, and that goal is to build reputation, to manage perception towards the desired end that enables mutual coexistence of organizations, be it institutional organizations, be it corporate bodies or corporate entities, or be it individuals, or be it societies. So it's a very deep practice that, the deeper we go into it, the clearer it becomes. So we stay on the surface, then we end up with the confusion.
So staying by this now, what would you rate? How would you rate PR practice in Nigeria vis-a-vis the global space?
All right. I think we are actually up there in the global space. And before I actually go into rating, I'll give you an example. In previous years, not too past years, you see government and institutions, they actually bring in PR experts from abroad to manage stakeholders in Nigeria. And more often than not, it falls flat on its face. The reason is that you can't do PR successfully when you're actually out of context culturally. So true. The context of the society has to be a big factor, perhaps the biggest determinant factor in how you manage relationship between institutions or entities. We're talking of stakeholders here. How do I know the people I work with? How do I know their mentality, their idiosyncrasies, their peculiarities? By bringing in someone that is external to help me get closer to them. It's never always going to work. But today now we have a lot of Nigerian institutions, both at the private sector and the public sector, relying on Nigerian public relations practitioners to help them through that process of achieving mutually beneficial relationships. Now, in terms of rating, the question we need to ask is, where is the Nigerian practice of PR vis-a-vis the global practice? And then we need to look at the trends. What are those trends that are actually shaping the way PR is practiced globally? We look at issues like sustainability positioning. A lot of organizations are beginning to leverage that issue around the economy, the society, the government, in being able to get closer to their ecosystem or their communities where they operate or their stakeholders. You see a lot of organizations now beginning to be champions of sustainability, champions of economic environmental friendliness, and so on and so forth. You use that platform because it is what is relevant to the intended audience. And Nigerian businesses are also doing that. We also look at the proliferation of platforms, the fact that you have the youth being champions of building platforms in order to ensure that not only are they ahead, but that they build communities, they establish commonalities, they develop tribes to ensure that they have their way as far as they are concerned. And you see that is also shaping the way we do public relations. Technology cannot be overlooked. Technology has become a very big driver of our public relations. And let's speak broadly, how communication is actually being done. So gone are the days where all I need is to issue a press release and I'll get my stakeholders in the marketplace. No. How many people are reading these things these days? So digital has come in to take a big role in terms of causing a disruption and giving us a mind shift towards what we do. So now, when I need to get across to my stakeholders, the first question is, who am I trying to communicate with? In identifying my target audience, then I need to also ask the question, what are their media consumption preferences or habits? Are they watching telenovelas from 8 p.m. or is it Z World? Do they listen to news at night, or do they follow radio broadcast in the morning? Are they sports enthusiasts? When is the best time to catch them? Are they YouTube addicts and they consume skits? And you see, if you pay attention, a lot of brands are going through skit makers, content creators to actually get their messages out. It's not just about the comedy. A lot of those messages are about issues, about new developments in the marketplace, new products, and so on and so forth. So in terms of practice, Nigerian practitioners are not being left behind. We are going along. And the best way to stay apace is to be ardent students of trends analysis. And we do that for those who are on top of the game. We can't stay on top without being, having our hands held onto what are the trends and what are those things influencing the trends. And if we look again deeply, you see that those trends are being shaped by a certain demographic, and those are the youths. Yes.
Let's stay with the youth and what happened during the last elections. A lot of talks around the drive and how youths, actually their course at that time, they focused on, well, let's not go that route, but some say it's populism. What do you call it? I looked at that. But first, my question really will be, how do you think government can bring back the youths, win the youths to their side? It's very important this happens because the number of youths in our population is not something you can ignore. You need them moving on. Or what do you think government can do to change this narrative?
All right. As difficult as it seems, I'll be emphatic about this. It can be done. It can be done. The first thing is we need to put populism itself in its proper perspective. Populism is not dangerous, and it's not a bad thing, really. It is what aspect of populism we allow that begins to bring danger or portends threat to institutions, to democracy, and to society as we know it to be. So populism can be taken in different ways. Populism is just having a huge mass of public opinion around an issue, and you can leverage it. When we go to the polls to elect our leaders, we can't be accused of actually being populism because we go with popular votes. But when it comes about opinion, and the dangerous type of populism is the one that is anti-pluralism. What do I mean? Populism that is considered dangerous, not just in Nigeria, globally, and that seems to be championed by the youth, is the one that delegitimizes opposing views. It's our way or the highway. It's the kind of populism that denies the rights of you because you don't agree with me, your right to free association, free assembly, opinion, even your right to grow old. There's a populism that is anti-older people. There's a populism that's about we against the establishment, authority, and whether it's government or corporate institutions. Those are the dangerous type of populism because it radicalizes anger. It weaponizes, issues in the public space, and it exploits the weaknesses in what binds societies together. There will always be divisions. Yeah. We never agree on everything together. But when we begin to say, because we have differences of opinion, we have a variance in agreement, you are the bad person, you are not real. That is the danger or the dangerous type of populism. It's called anti-pluralism populism. I'm sorry about this big grammar, but it basically denies the pluralist in democratic establishments because it means everybody must go in the same direction. And it's dangerous because it kills expectations of a better tomorrow because it focuses on fear. It focuses on hunger. It keeps the mind focused on what is not going right while we miss out on what is going right. In all essence, when we look at the society, things are not as bad as it seems to be, or they seem to be. It took someone who is an American ambassador to Nigeria or High Commissioner, I'm sorry, I don't know which one it is, to correct some of our colleagues in the media recently.
True. About
how they denigrate
Nigeria
and rile up people. So that is the dangerous part of populism when that is encouraged because it can actually bring about ruination rather than, encourage positive outlook. And what we need more than anything, whether you are the youth or we are the old, is positive, optimistic outlook on tomorrow. Things will always get better. So that's my opinion.
Interesting stuff.
Now, I think there's a second part to your question.
Yes, go ahead. Time is always on.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How the government can now...
bring them
in. That's actually where communication comes to play, right? Because it's all about managing relationship. You have a large number of the youth that seems to be hungry about a lot of things. So the first thing the government needs to do is to take heed, pay attention, show the youth that they are listening to them, and begin to take action that communicates that they are being heard. So how do we do that in communication? We, first of all, have to be sure that we aggregate public opinion. You can't succeed or you can't actively or successfully take on populist opinion without having a pulse on what the people feel. What we do in public relations is regularly we conduct either online sentiment analysis or we conduct surveys amongst the citizenry to gauge what the people are saying. You can't have a true sense of what the public are saying if you only listen to radio stations. Do you agree? You can't have a true sense of what the public feels if you only sit on Twitter. It's a very toxic environment out there, but there's some truth there. So we aggregate a lot of this through research. That research will give us insight, and the government has to take advantage and leverage those insights in being able to formulate policies that will address the concerns of the youth. Second one, when you eventually get to communication, you need to do a lot of education. You need to provide a lot of information. There's a lot of ignorance flying around, but that ignorance cannot be allowed to breed or grow. You need to find a way of bringing the youth back by providing information and educating them. What are those things causing them anger? And when you communicate, it's very important that you are very, very careful on how you frame. Don't try as much as possible to negate their own claims. Oh, Nigeria is bad. I don't think, as PR practitioner, what we should be saying is that Nigeria is not bad, because in that negation, we are also affirming their own negativity. We should be able to frame our communication, our messaging in affirmative ways that brings about that optimism, that reassurance of a better tomorrow. We are working on things. We listen to you. We are going to get it right. Lastly is the channels through which we communicate with the youth. It should be what we call transmedia. What do I mean? Let's not rely on the old ways of putting things in newspapers or putting things on news channels. The youth of today have developed a multiplicity of platforms just for the purpose of communicating and building commonality. The government should take advantage of those multiplicity of platforms and not rely on things as they used to be.
Interesting conversation. But before I let you go, if we can do this in 1 minute or max 2 minutes, that it's about this same reputation thing. What do you think should be communication and reputation imperatives for the Bola Tinubu-led administration?
All right.
I know 2 minutes is quite small, but
all right. No, I'll try.
All right.
And I'll try. I think the present administration started off on a good note. Vis-a-vis the last administration. What new administration needs most at the beginning of their reign is signaling. True signaling. So from the day of inauguration to the first week to the second week, a lot of signals have emerged. And those signals have been successful in quelling the agitations, the doubts, the pessimism, and so on and so forth. What do I mean? Look at the issue of fuel subsidy removal. It was instantaneous.
Instant.
Right. It was followed by the signing of the student loan bill. Yeah. The electricity bill followed suit. We have the floating of the Naira. All these are signals that are communicated to various stakeholders on the fact that, let me use the term you used before I came on, this administration means business. Right? The youth are hungry about certain things, and the government is not blind to those things.
Yes.
Fuel subsidy removal is an economic issue that affects every one of us. Student loan bill is an issue that affects the youth and enables, in some ways, a much more open access to education. The electricity bill should help our SMEs if we eventually get it right. The floating of the Naira is something that should encourage international investors, FDI you mentioned, vis-a-vis the regulation of the downstream sector with the fuel subsidy removal. It's communicating the fact that, look, it's not going to be business as usual. We mean business, and it's business of growing the economy, bringing about an open economy, a competitive landscape that does not allow exploitation, does not favor just a few to the detriment of the large. The sufficient condition the government has to do in terms of is to now reinforce the reputation they are beginning to build, which seems to be positive, with meeting action with policies. All these new policies and those that are to come must be seen by the Nigerian people to be properly implemented, properly executed, and with transparency as well. I think with the way they have started, it should be positive.
It's an interesting one, and we'll surely have a part 2 of this discussion. I've been speaking to Mr. Adekunle Dixon Odukoya there. He's a senior consultant strategy with Chain Reactions Africa. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you,
we appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
All right.